Wealth, fame, power.
What's up, it's your host Tokyotron, and welcome to episode 2 of Power Scaling all of One Piece. Moving on from Romance Dawn and continuing the series with the Orangetown arc. Now this arc is relatively small in comparison to the rest of One Piece. It's only 13 chapters in the manga and 4 episodes in the anime, and because the chapter's so short, I'm gonna go through the whole arc and scale all of the relevant characters in it, and then I'll be putting them into the tier list that I started in last week's episode. And first I want to touch on some new Luffy scaling from this arc. Now I understand he hasn't gotten any stronger since the last arc, but we did see a very impressive feat from him since we got a bit more scaling information revealed. So Buggy has these special cannonballs called Buggy Balls, and Luffy's able to easily deflect one with more force than it was shot at him with. And just as a reference, we first saw the Buggy Ball at the very beginning of this arc, and it's not your ordinary cannonball. As you can see in this scene, one shot goes completely through a set of houses, and then Buggy himself states that the power of the Buggy Ball is so great it could wipe out the whole village in just one shot, and Luffy's already able to deflect these. So you can just say that it's due to Luffy's Devil Fruit, and he's able to counter any cannonball, bullet, or really any projectile in the series. But whatever the case is, Luffy can tank and output force equal to the force required to destroy a whole village, at least under the right circumstances, and this is only by chapter 15. And now that we got Luffy out of the way, let's scale the new characters that were introduced in this arc. So first off, we have this group of Buggy Grunts, and they get negatived by Zoro without him even having to use his swords. And right before Zoro embarrasses them, they also get tricked out of their ship by Nami. So overall, these guys are just the epitome of fodder, both mentally and physically. So for this reason, I'm gonna have to put them at the very bottom of fodder tier. And next up, we have the first real strong person, well in this case, I guess animal of this arc, and it's the lion Richie. When I was first watching One Piece, his true power kind of flew over my head, but he's actually pretty ridiculously strong at this point in the story. So, at the beginning of the arc, Luffy got stuck in a steel cage, and this was actually a really big issue for him at the beginning of this arc. And just to quickly put things into perspective, Luffy wasn't strong enough to break out of the cage, and Zoro couldn't cut through the cage either. And even though both Luffy and Zoro weren't powerful enough to break out of the cage, the lion Richie was able to break the cage with a pretty nonchalant attack. So for this reason, I have to put Richie in at least mid-tier with Zoro and Luffy. But unfortunately for Richie, right after Luffy got out of the cage, he was able to beat him with one attack. So in terms of raw attack potency, Richie should scale slightly above Luffy and Zoro at this point of the story. But as an overall fighter, he's worse than both of them, so he goes at the bottom of mid-tier for now. And after scaling Richie, there's no better place to go than to his master, Mochi. Unfortunately for Moji, he didn't have any strength feats like Richie did, and he still ended up getting one shot by Luffy. So his strength level by himself would probably be low tier, but considering that Mochi's lion is so strong and essentially they always fight together and they fight in a pair, I would consider Richie as almost like a weapon of Mochi in this case, so I would put Mochi in mid tier right above Richie by himself. Continuing on with the Red Nose Pirates, we move on to Kabaji, and he's a pretty unique character and he follows the theme of Buggy's crew, as Kabaji is also a circus freak, and in his case, his whole fighting style is based on it. So Kabaji rides around on a unicycle and fights with a sword and spinning tops, and overall he's actually a pretty tricky opponent. We even see him getting a few good hits on a weakened Zoro, but at the end of the fight, Zoro seems to finally take things seriously, and as soon as he takes things seriously for the first time in the fight, he just blitzes and one-shots Kabaji. So overall we can somewhat scale Kabaji to Zoro, even though he's nowhere near as strong as him, so I would put him in mid-tier right above Richie and Mochi, but behind Zoro and Luffy. And finally, the leader of the Red Nose Pirates, Buggy. Now, Buggy's also kind of hard to scale because of his unique power, and since it's One Piece, I'm thinking of matchups a lot, and for the most part, everyone in a tier should be able to beat everyone below them. So Buggy uses knives, and he can split his body apart and control each of his limbs. And because of this power, he's kind of tricky to fight, and Luffy has some trouble with him in the beginning. And just besides Buggy being tricky and awkward to fight, we also see a very impressive speed feat out of him, as it seems like he's easily able to dodge some of Luffy's attacks. And because he's at the very least able to dodge some of Luffy's basic punches, we have to put Buggy at least in mid-tier with Luffy. But unfortunately, Buggy faces a very similar fate to Kabaji, and as soon as Luffy gets serious, he one-shots him. So I'm putting Buggy in mid-tier, right below Zoro and Luffy, but above the rest of his crew, obviously. And now I guess I should quickly talk about Nami. So she's at least stronger and faster and just generally more athletic than the average citizen in One Piece, and it also seems like she's able to deal with fodder quite easily. It's also kind of weird to power scale her because a lot of the ways she's able to kind of deal with people and escape just seems to be for comedic purposes, but at the end of the day she doesn't seem too much stronger than fodder even though she can beat most of them. Also, at this point in the story, we have to remember that Nami doesn't have any strong weapons, so for now I'm gonna put her at the top of fodder tier. And after scaling Nami, I'm gonna quickly go over the new additions in the recently updated tier list. So first off, we have Nami at the top of fodder tier. And then jumping all the way up to mid tier, we have the lion Richie, and then stronger than him is his master Mochi, and then even stronger than him is Kabaji, and then even stronger than Kabaji is their captain, Red-Nosed Buggy. Orange Town was a relatively small arc, not only in terms of chapters, but also in terms of important characters that I could scale. So make sure you come back next week when I scale everyone in the Syrup Village arc. And as always, that's just my take, so now what are yours? Let me know in the comments section below who you think the strongest person in Orange Town was. And as always, to stay up to date with all my future videos, make sure to like and subscribe.